Well, first off, I'm pretty sure I did a good job last year. The reason being that TriDec didn't require Agri-Northwest to be a sponsor in order to get me on the agenda this year. So I'm pretty confident that meant I did well. When I first moved to the Tri-Cities in 1998, I noticed soon after that that whenever there was a major event of importance held, the master of ceremonies was always Fran Forget. And I realized that that was because he was funny, he was erudite, and I thought to myself, I would like to do well enough in the things I do that someday I'll get asked to do one of these events like Fran Forget. I will now demonstrate why that will never occur. The 48th Super Bowl is the first Stoner Bowl. And I wonder if either team will be able to come out after halftime. I saw this item in a Utah newspaper just Monday. It involves the Chief Justice of the Utah Supreme Court. Happens to be a neighbor of mine. His name's Matt Durant. And through a quirk of fate, Matt Durant and I actually played on an intramural basketball team together many years ago, and he has no memory of that, and it's lucky for him he doesn't. But Matt actually had a younger brother that was 6'7" and was an All-America basketball player at BYU. And he was highly thought of, looked like he was going to be drafted, and was in fact drafted into the NBA. But he was 6'7" and weighed about 210 pounds, and played with his back to the basket, which meant in Utah language, he'd only weighed about 60 pounds less than Karl Malone and a couple inches shorter if they'd had to guard each other. So Devin had a bit of a disadvantage, but his brother Matt is quoted as saying this. It says, Durant recalled the 1984 NBA draft included some of basketball's all-time greats, Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Michael Jordan. Also available that year was Durant's brother Devin, a high-scoring forward from BYU. Durant said he learned from his friend Dave Checketts, who was the general manager of the Utah Jazz at the time, that the Jazz were very interested in his brother with the 16th pick. The day before the draft, Durant said Checketts called him with some bad news. The team had decided to go another direction. The Jazz planned to take a guard from Gonzaga University named John Stockton. I was shocked. This Stockton was a nobody, Durant said. Barely able to contain my emotions, I said to Dave, "You're making a huge mistake." He used that to let the judiciary know that you could trust his opinion. And let me talk a little bit about what's going on in agriculture. And every year I give some of these same slides and think fast because I go through them fast, okay? This is world corn ending inventory, and all you want to do is look over on the right, and you see that there's a little above 15% times 52 weeks. There's about an 8-week supply of corn in the world right now. You'll notice in the United States, where corn has been kind of tight in recent years, it loosened up. It was a big crop this last year. Corn prices are about $2 a bushel lower than they were last year at this time. And that has an impact on a lot of things, a lot of foods that we eat, and I would like to say including the price of meat, and it does have an impact on it, except that beef prices right now are the highest in history. So it actually means that the processor's making some money this year. It's been very tight. The supply of animals in the United States continues to decline. The animals are a little bigger than they used to be, but production of beef in the United States is not going up, and world demand is, and so you'll notice that in the supermarket it's getting high. Okay, soybean inventory around the world, a little bit above 25% of 3-month supply. In the United States, however, you'll notice that it's down around 5%. 5% times 52 weeks, you got a 2.5-week supply of soybeans in the United States. Now, historically, the price of corn to the price of soybeans is you take the price of corn, multiply it by 2.5, and that's the price of a bushel of soybeans. If that ratio gets higher than that, and right now the price of soybeans is about 3 times the price of a bushel of corn, that means that farmers will shift acreage from corn to soybeans. And you'll notice that the world inventory on wheat now is also around 25%. And in the United States, it's about 25%. So in general, we're in pretty good shape on the food supply in the United States, which would say more moderate prices, which I think in some ways is good for you as a consumer. It's not necessarily good for the area in terms of the farm economy. Okay? But what you're going to see this next year is you're going to see a bunch of corn acres that move to soybeans, and they're going to come at the expense of corn. You're also going to see a little bit more spring wheat, and you're going to see some land come out of the conservation reserve programs and be planted to other crops. Now, I've shown this slide 2 or 3 times before. This is updated, and this is the food price index for the world. And you'll notice that in 2011, it was at record levels, and it's worked its way down. 2012 is a little lower. 2013, it's been about the same level. But to me, this is one of the most excellent predictors of world stability. When this number gets high, the world becomes less stable. And this is a map from the Washington State Magazine from a couple of years ago, but I think it's useful. It's a map of the world. Every country's a circle. So geographically, it's not too accurate, but it portrays that the size of the circle indicates what portion of the income people have to spend is spent on food. And the darkness of the circle, the darker the circle is, the higher percentage of the children under the age of 5 in that country are malnourished. Okay? So if you look at the size of the circles, what does it tell you? The bigger the circle, the less stable the country. And where's the instability? Africa and India and throughout Asia, the lower part of Asia there. And does that sort of ring true with the political situation? Interestingly enough, China spends a high percentage of their income on food, and you know, it would be, if you looked at world economic freedom or world political freedom, it would be considered a more repressive nation. But the way they're maintaining stability is with the money that they have and all the dollars they have, they are buying food like crazy. And I heard in a meeting last year that one of the among the things they like to buy from the United States are almonds and pistachios and those types of things. In fact, a pistachio processor said that if we would let them, they would buy the entire U.S. pistachio crop. So they're in the market, and a lot of the reason that we're doing well in agriculture over the last few years is that there's a lot of export. Somebody was laughing a month or 2 ago because there was a report that there'd been a semi or 2 semi-loads of walnuts stolen by somebody, and they thought that was hilarious. Okay, well, a load of walnuts would be worth over $200,000. So really wasn't that funny. Now, if you stole a load of sod and it was worth $1,000, that'd be funny, you know. But at $200,000 for walnuts, that's not funny. So, and if you go down to the store and try and buy them, you won't think it's funny either. Okay. So I want to just go through a few crops that are relevant to the state of Washington and kind of show you what's happening. You'll notice that in recent years, with the exception of one down year, sweet corn prices have been historically high. I say that, and yet at $120 a ton, that's 6 cents a pound. That means an ear of sweet corn at the farm level is worth less than 6 cents. So if you see it in the store and it's above 6 cents, somebody made some money on it in between, okay? You'll notice that processing potatoes are historically high. With corn prices down, there will be downward pressure on this price also this year. Okay? But again, even at historical heights, $150 a ton is 7.5 cents a pound. It takes about 2 pounds of potatoes to make a pound of French fries because of shrink and waste and other things. So in a pound of French fries, there's 15 cents worth of value that the farmer got, and then the rest is in processing and shipping. And when you produce these items that have fairly low value per unit of weight, shipping becomes a big portion of the total cost of them. I heard a fellow from the World Bank probably 7 or 8 years ago say that as countries emerge from poverty and as they have more income, they have a tendency to improve their diet. That's one of the first things they do. And one of the first things they do is move away from starchy foods. They move away from things like potatoes and cassava and a bunch of those kinds of things. And the World Bank was very surprised that demand for potatoes did not go down in these emerging nations. And his comment was they completely underestimated the power of French fries. That they just ate a better quality of potato once they had more money. All right, this is the monthly price of fresh apples in Washington. The magnitude of it doesn't matter so much as the volatility of it. And why do you suppose apples are so volatile in the course of a year? Here's the answer. Nobody wants, the worst apple you could own as a supplier is the one that was picked last year when the new one comes off. Nobody wants the old one anymore, right? The most valuable apple that you'll have is the one from last year that you still have in inventory the week before there's a new one available. Okay? And so right at the end of the season, that very small inventory has a tendency to shoot up in value. Then the new crop comes in, then the price falls way off. So this is a volatile crop. You'll look at it, you say, why in the world is the price jumping around like that? But that's what goes on. Here you will notice that effect on price of corn at Portland, and you see it's down. We have an entity within our own group that sells corn to a dairy we operate. And we have a contract with them that will take delivery of it, and they can price it any time during the year they want, and we'll pay that price. Whatever the market is, what the quoted market is, we'll do it. Well, this year, for some reason, they just waited and waited and waited, and we bought it at harvest for about $2 less than they could have sold it to us 12 months earlier. And you know whose fault they think that is? Ours. So they're volatile, and there's downward pressure. There's downward pressure on some inputs, fertilizer being one, and that's because with all the natural gas that's been developed in the United States in the last few years, you're actually seeing the production of ammonia-based fertilizers come back to the United States. And that business was gone, and I thought we would never see it again. But natural gas prices are low enough now, it's coming back. Here's soft white wheat at Portland. If you notice back in 2008, it shot way up. Didn't stay up there very long, but it's been, you know, by historical standards, it's been a pretty good number. And the wheat supply is a little tighter than the corn supply, and it's and white wheat is an interesting wheat. Do you know what it's used for? It's used for pastries and noodles and things like that. It's not high in protein, so it doesn't have as much gluten. It's not as chewy. It's more flaky, okay? And the white wheat production area of the United States is Washington. It's the Palouse, okay? So northern Idaho and Washington. So it's kind of a specialty crop, and a lot of it gets shipped to Asia. And so it's been high. It's off a little bit, but that's mainly because there's a glut of some of these other crops, or the supplies in inventory are bigger. So I think what you're going to see is it's going to be a pretty good year for agriculture in the state of Washington. It's not going to be the giant year that the last few have been. But by historical standards, still a very good year. Thank you. We're back on time.